Afternoon.
My name is Ari Prabhu. I am the founder of the Bamboo Village Initiative in Indonesia. It's an initiative that started in 2015 as an MOU between the Ministry of Environment and Forestry and the Environmental Bamboo Foundation. And since last year, I started a new initiative. It's a financial vehicle, a philanthropic financial vehicle called the Bamboo Village Trust. And so, for those of you who don't know about the Bamboo Village Initiative, we branded basically a bamboo-based agroforestry system that integrates a forest to factory value addition in that same landscape. And so our theory is that without the farmers who we work with that are in very, very rural areas of Indonesia and now in 12 other countries, without value addition in that landscape, it's very hard for them to make the livelihoods that they need to make this whole bamboo thing make sense for them, right? And so selling the bamboo pole, my dear late mother, Linda Garland, started in 1973, working with indigenous communities and local communities, making beautiful value addition products. But in the pole form, when the farmers sold the poles, it just wasn't enough cash flows, right? And then when they jumped over and made a furniture, they could make a furniture, but they could make maybe 5 to 10 units per month. So it was really a hard kind of balancing act. And so I went to China for about 15 times and worked with the Chinese Academy of Forestry to develop a system for Indonesia. And I don't know if anyone here knows Professor Fumawi or Professor Walter Lise? Lisa? Yeah? And of course, Abdul Latif, an amazing pioneer from Malaysia. It was really helpful in the founding days of the Environmental Bamboo Foundation. So actually, Malaysia and Indonesia are siblings in this effort, and it's more than 40 years now. But I've only been in the mix for about 15 years. So we talk about this concept called the restoration economy, and it's basically creating a restoration process that gives livelihood to the communities. And essentially, we are land brokers that help the government to give tenurial access, not rights, to communities, for them to truly believe that the investment that they put in that land can be a benefit of their great-grandchildren. And so we talk about more than 100 years of tenure. Okay, so the Bamboo Village Trust, again, it's a philanthropic vehicle, and we started working in the equatorial belt, and now we've expanded to the tropics, the tropical belt of the world, basically from the 20 degrees south, the Tropic of Capricorn, to the Tropic of Cancer is our mandate area. And we're looking for what we call backbone landscape partners. So landscape partners who are already working in forestry, in social forestry, even in innovative agriculture, regenerative agriculture, that can help. What we call a champion is someone who's really been, grounded in the works of agriculture, forestry, plantation work in that landscape, to create this social forestry system. So the Bamboo Village Trust is really serving this Bamboo Village initiative, which now there are quite a few different partners, 127 different partners, and we're giving a grant of roughly $150,000 to the different communities where the Backbone Landscape Partner can help grow these systems. And also, of course, the land has to be there, and the people have to be there. So if we can have these two components, and then we do an appraisal of the enabling condition, then we can move forward. So Yeah, I'll skip that one. So yeah, so our vision is to create a restoration economy on degraded lands globally, and how we do that is by starting with 200 bamboo villages along the tropical belt by 2029, which we think that with 200 of these systems, dispersed around the tropics, there will be enough data, enough experience for all of us, especially government to government, as well as private sector to private sector, and people to people, communities to communities, to share their information on what works, what doesn't work, economically, socially, and ecologically. Next slide. Okay, I mean, you guys have heard these numbers before, but there's roughly 2 billion hectares of degraded lands across the world. Unfortunately, that's the biggest parts of the world that could have been degraded have already been degraded. So that number isn't really increasing, but the severity of the degradation is increasing. It's getting worse. So, it went from mildly degraded to moderately degraded, and now a lot of these lands are becoming severely degraded. And so we're literally getting desertification happening in the middle of Borneo, right? In Katingan, because of certain land use activities. So we need to embrace complexity, and social forestry systems and bamboo-based agroforestry, where you mix the bamboo with other species, is truly what we believe is the only way that bamboo can have a long-term future that has a function ecologically, socially, and economically. And so it's quite a controversial position, but literally we say we don't believe in bamboo, we believe in bamboo villages, which is this encapsulation of a social, an economic, and an ecological condition that is stacked in one integrated model. 36 billion tons of CO2 up there. Maybe the number is bigger. I think Bill Gates gave a number of 50. Anyway, there's many billions up there, and we got to pull it down somehow. And plants and photosynthesis, as you said, Dr. Bharati, bamboo is a great option. And in each landscape, in each microclimate, we will have different rates of sequestration. But the key thing is the custodians of that landscape, the people, they truly have to own it, the ownership solution. And this is something that I learned from my mother, and I'm really trying to be the champion of this concept. The ownership solution is foundation to all of this working, because if that farmer doesn't get out of bed motivated to go to that land for 288 working days a year, we're going to have problems. I'm not going to go through the other stuff, but there's also a lot of context there. So anyway, why bamboo? If we had time, I don't know if we do, we'd do a nice bamboo yoga, and I'd have you, absorb 50 tons of carbon dioxide per hectare per year. I'd have you suck up 5,000 liters of water. I'd force you to become a mixture between a ballerina and Arnold Schwarzenegger, light and strong. It's lots of fun. Next timeline. So I hope I'm leaving a cliffhanger there. And versatile in end use, the versatility of bamboo, I think, is something that has been a bit in question in the last few years, because the definition of bamboo has also been in question in the last few years, right? All these different giant grasses that are assumed to have similar properties, unfortunately don't. And so, in Africa, they say, well, my bamboo has this properties, and we can do this, and then turns out 5 years later they couldn't get it off the ground. Why? Because it doesn't have the same properties as Dendrocalamus aspera or Philostachys pubescens or whichever species. So these groups of giant grasses that were used by indigenous peoples for thousands and thousands of years, we don't even know how many thousands. I heard in Australia from even friends of Jennifer that it could be even 60,000 years ago, Aboriginals in Australia were weaving bamboo. So this plant has been with people from the beginning because it's so versatile. And So I think it's so versatile in the traditional context, and then reinventing that traditional technology is going to be contextualized to each species and landscape and condition of socioeconomic and ecological conditions. Rapidly renewable, cost-effective, empowers communities. You guys know all this stuff. The key thing is we work with 2,000, we work with 2,000 hectares of land, which we understand from the Chinese factory makers. That this is really the reverse engineering, so that the machine is given enough food to be happy for 20 hours of work for 288 working days a year, and then that machine can pay itself off, and then they can have a dignified livelihood. If you don't feed that machine for 20 hours a day for 288 working days a year, it costs. And you know, there's so much human error. We've built 3 of these systems now. You know, every part of the machine that will break, and several times, and then we'll get a good mechanic to start fixing it in the right way. And all of this actually has to be put into the plan, and it isn't in the beginning, right? And so we believe that 200 households with 2,000 hectares of land creates a more resilient system than if it's done in smaller systems. In Indonesia, we started with like 10-hectare systems and then 50-hectare systems. And so now we've really brought it to this one factory reverse engineering of a forest. So we have 4 pathways that we run at the Bamboo Village Trust. We do a AI, GIS based analysis that basically is 7 enabling conditions: land condition, village preparedness, support from the government, access and ease of doing business, risks and threats, gender positive potential, and the potential of bamboo to be integrated into other agro commodities, so that you have synergy and you don't have silo. The coffee truck can help the bamboo truck, that can help the cacao truck, that can help the whatever other commodity. And then we have this champion activation phase. We've been doing social forestry plans since the 80s. Most of them have failed, and you know, we really learned that okay, it's good to have one chef in the kitchen, right or wrong. Just let them get to a complete plan, and then right or wrong they can bring it to everybody else. Then we can discuss. But if one chef comes in, then another chef comes in, another chef comes in, they never get to their thoughts being brought out. So we have a champion that is asked to make a business plan, an operational plan, a benefit sharing plan, which we think is clear, is key. So that's profit share as well as non-cash benefits that they can share. They can share the tubers of up to like 300, 500 tons of tubers that they can eat, as well as share in the local economy, as well as doing these other agroforestry systems. So, and then the last one is the tenurial plan, how they will all split up the land. That's 1 year, and then it goes to the cooperative activation phase. That's where the champion brings it to 200 households. Again, it's another year, maximum duration. And in Indonesia, we had an amazing gentleman, Russ Dilts. He started the Farmer Field School curriculum. And so Russ, in 2006, helped the Environmental Bamboo Foundation do a Farmer Field School for bamboo. And so we use this, and it's a learning by doing system. And we've stuck behind this methodology for quite some time now. So we do that, and by the way, that's downloadable on the internet if anyone wants to read that. It's for free, of course. And then so once they have figured out who actually can work together in this system, that 2,000 hectares is broken up into 10 hectares per family, right? And so what does one family, husband and wife, the kids, and even the grandparents do on 10 hectares for a 200 hectare system of social forestry? Once they sign and agree on that, they get a little bit of money. And then we go to the social forestry activation phase. That's basically nurseries, planting, all this stuff that you would think about in a typical process of creating social forestry. But
we truly believe that these 3 steps are critical, and they're not done in a good way in the past, even in our own institution. So this is our pivot and our change. Okay, as I said, we in site selection, we do land condition, village preparedness, government support, access and ease of doing business, risks and threats, gender positive potential, and then the potential for integration of the bamboo supply chain into other agro commodity supply chains. Again, we create these 4 documents with the champion. The champion can be a male, but actually we prefer it to be a female because we need at least 50% participation of women and girls to make these systems work. And I'll talk about that more in a second. We have, this 12-step bamboo forest system that we started with the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. That's available online. And once the champion does this, they get $10,000 as a performance payment. So we kind of dangle a carrot at the end of the process. Once they create all these documents and it goes through a technical committee, a risk committee, and a compliance committee, they get $10,000. So they're incentivized to really make a good plan. Next slide. Okay, cooperative activation phase. This is after the champion can bring it to the 200 households and they all agree, and it takes about a year, they get $40,000. So again, it's an incentivized process. And then at the end of the social forestry phase, the social forestry activation phase, we do an appraisal of that land, and we give a discounted cash flows valuation of what we call a social forestry asset, which deems that land bankable for the first time. And for these communities, their social forestry systems have historically never been bankable. And so if we can get a $5 million valuation on that land, they can borrow up to $500,000, about a tenth of that. And that's something that banks are willing to do as long as the banks can liquidate some of these commodities that are growing. So if everything on site grows, this is a bit of taro that they grow in Flores. If everything's at about 2 to 3 meters tall, and the whole 2,000 hectares is planted, and the people are in place, the co-op's in place, all the legal is in place, that's a bankable system. And then we give them, again, a performance payment of $100,000. So that's the mechanism. So right now we're going around the world and teaming up with partners, and actually for quite a few years now we've been working with Sayad and Lucas and his team. And so we would want to talk more about the Malaysian condition. In Indonesia, we have been reaching out to about 12 different countries to work with us in Indonesia. And now Malaysia is really one of the first that we're pushing. So look forward to working with anyone in Malaysia who can do this with us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Arif, for a very